Well, hello. Good afternoon. What a happy Sunday we have going on here today, guys. Sure is good to have everybody here. Nice to come in and see a few folks already joining into the comments and reactions here. We got Steve and Richard in here and had a bunch of thumbs up to get started. I always love starting a live stream and seeing that everybody's already gotten started, getting ready to watch. I'm glad you guys were able to join in, especially since I only posted a couple hours about this live stream coming up. That's going to be something I'm going to be talking about a little bit today, is this scheduling issue that I have with these live streams. I am trying to get much more regular at this so that you guys can kind of count on this being a good day for us to get together and talk about a whole bunch of things together. I know my voice still sounds a little funny. I think I'm having some allergy-related issues that have been going on for some time. But, you know, it's so funny. The guys that I work with, some of the people I work with are telling me, hey, Dante, say something. I just like hearing your voice right now. I could listen to you read a book the way you sound right now. So maybe it'll stay permanent. I like it myself. It's better than that horse-sounding voice I had going on for a while. Let's see who else we got in here. We got Josephine is here, and Stephen Toomey. Good to see you again. Let's see, Marilda Tuamala is here. Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. Brian Wayne is here. Where is everybody from? I bet Casey Challey might be from Kansas City. I don't know. just guess. Well, welcome here. It's good to see you. Dutch Carnivore's back as usual. Always good to see you, brother. Denise Whitman is here from Wisconsin. We got Timothy McGuire from Maryland. Thelma Henriks. I think I pronounced it right. Henriks is here from Kansas. Stephen Toomey says he camped out last night to get here first. Carnivore Farmer's here from Tennessee. I love a lot of these new carnivore names I'm seeing out there. There's so many different people sharing their carnivore stories either on YouTube or other social media. It's such a blessing to see so many people getting together to talk about all the benefits that we've had from changing our lives from a carnivore way of eating. John Barry, look at that. As a matter of fact, he's in the green room. So how about I bring John in and we'll say hello to him too, because we only got an hour today. Let me go ahead and put him in here. And wait, nope, that's the wrong one. All right, here we go. Let's see.
Hey, all right.
There he is.
How you doing, Dante?
Good, John. How are you doing, brother?
I'm awesome. Really good.
I'll tell you, it has been a interesting weekend for me. I had a little accident yesterday at work that I don't know. It's so funny. I'm actually doing better because of it. Mentally, somehow it's helped me to be more relaxed. I don't know how to describe it, but anyway, I was cleaning some glassware last night, stemware, and you know how you can hold the stem on one end and you got the cup on the other. So I was trying to get it polished, really, not cleaning it, and the stem broke and stuck right in my palm. That's why I've got a Band-Aid on here right now, and it went so deep that my left thumb is still numb from here to here on this side of my thumb, and both of these fingers are not working like they should. When I try to lift anything with those three fingers right now, it won't let me do it. I tried to pick my plate up after breakfast this morning, and I couldn't do it, which is a little concerning for a guy who waits tables. I work at a fine dining restaurant. A lot of you may not be familiar with that. I still work. This is not my full-time gig, at least not yet, but it is what I'd like to make it, because this is where my passion is. This is where I love helping people get their lives together too, and to find the answers that I found that have changed so much for me. But dealing with this, you would think I would be having maybe a nervous breakdown, being worried about it, but I'm not. I don't know. Somehow it just seems like facing this and being in doubt about it has put me in a position where it's like, well, there's not much I can do except try to keep my hand immobile as much as I can, not overuse it, cause any more damage, because when I try to lift things, it really hurts. The doctor says the numbness should go away, but who knows? It was actually an APRN that I saw, so I don't know. He didn't look at anything deep inside. They x-rayed it and looked for glass to make sure there's no glass in there. But somehow this is just allowing me to sit back and say, all right, Lord, you're in charge of my life. I'm going to let you guide me down this road, and I'm not going to worry about how it's going to work out. So somehow that enthusiasm was what welled up in me this morning, because I'd almost wasn't going to do the live stream today. John and I didn't get a chance to talk this week so we could talk about what we were going to talk about. But I thought, it doesn't have to be something that we plan to talk about every time, because what I love about this is the carnivore way of life has changed so many levels and dimensions of my life and a lot of other people's lives that it's good to come and talk about just how it's affected our daily walk and process. And lately, 2024 has been very interesting for me in a way that's not the way I would have liked to have planned to have it, but let's just say I've had a lot of spiritual battles and some adversity come in that has forced me to lean more on my faith than ever before, and I can feel that pulling me forward now for the first time in several months, where I really feel like I'm not just standing there waiting. I always like to compare these situations whenever I've come into them, where I feel like I've got mountains on either side, I've got a sea in front of me, and behind me is an army looking to pound me down, just like the story of Moses and the Israelites in the Exodus. They were surrounded by everything that could be wrong, and all they had to do was stand and watch the deliverance of the Lord as he parted the sea and allowed the way for them to go through and to be able to move on into their freedom of their life. That's how the Lord deals with me in my heart, and it's been so wonderful to have this way of eating, because it's helped me to overcome physical difficulties that I've had most of my life. I haven't talked about this almost at all in the last 3 years. I have talked about some of the issues where I had depression and anxiety a lot in my life as an adult, but I haven't gone all the way back to where when I was a child, I was diagnosed with ADHD and they put me on Ritalin. And I always look back on that in my life as being, one, I discounted ADHD as being a thing. I thought it was kind of like, this is just something that people get diagnosed with because nobody knows how to deal with reality anymore. Maybe I was one of those people. Maybe my parents didn't want to deal with a hyperactive kid or somebody who was doing whatever it was I was doing that caused me to get to that point. But when I look back on my life, I can see that I've had a lot of those issues since then. But it's always been the spiritual side that's been able to pull me through. But as I got older and I was in my late 40s, and I was telling you about how I was still focusing on the spiritual, but this issue with my body being constantly in pain and constantly causing issues mentally because it was a gut-related issue, and you know how the gut and the mind are so well tied together, it made it almost impossible for me to function. But ever since I've been on this way of eating, I've been like Superman when it comes to my emotional side, and depression and stuff like that has all just been gone up until 2024. And I think some of that was related to some things that I did on my own, like using those Delta 8 pens, because I was trying to up my dopamine, I guess. My body was telling me, you're not feeling good, so use this to feel a little better. Or actually, it was probably more the fact that I just had access to it, and then I got hooked on it again. And then I had to kick all of that. But somehow it messed with my ADHD symptoms, and it's been a rough year. But I still look at it as being a trial by fire, where I'm getting better because of it. This is something I couldn't have done 3.5 years ago. I would not have been able to see the light on the other side of that tunnel that I wasn't able to see. You know how they say you can see the light at the end of the tunnel? I wasn't able to see the light at the end of the tunnel for several months this year, but yet I was able to endure it in a much better way, to where I could be comfortable enough to do the things I need to do and still push through. So it's been getting rid of the poison in my diet that has helped me to be able to have that better control. And I wanted to bring this up and talk about it because I know people are going to go on and get healthy from doing the things I've talked about and learn a lot of things, but they're going to say, it's not fixing all of my mental health problems, or it's not fixing all of my spiritual problems too. I never wanted to have anybody think this was a cure-all. But getting all of the poisons out of my system has made it so much easier for me to regulate those tough times and bad decisions that I make for myself, that I'm able to recover now. And then I'm able to look at a situation like this where my workplace income is in possible jeopardy. I know there's the workers' comp stuff, but I don't know how about any of that stuff and how it all plays out. I just know that right now I feel like I am totally in God's hands, and I'm comfortable with that, and I'm able to get up and move on and go forward. And I wanted to share that with everybody, and I hope it comes across as a way that's helpful to people. And yeah, that's where it is. You said you had some things you wanted to talk about too.
That's right, Dante. Got a couple of topics that kind of came up during the week. And one was something that I posted on my Facebook page, and it just really blew me away. It was a quote by Hippocrates, who, of course, is, he's known as the father of medicine, so to speak. And the quote is, "Before you heal someone, ask them if they are willing to give up the things that make them sick." And it really struck me because carnivore is really about giving up the things that are making us sick. Yeah. Because we're living in this world with the standard American diet, which is terrible, SAD, which we really need to switch over to the other SAD, which is the species appropriate diet, right? But the
I haven't heard that. That's a good
diet,
one.
Yeah, the standard American diet is just killing everyone, and there are so many elements to it. There is the gluten, there's the grain. I mean, we learned from people like David Perlmutter, who wrote Grain Brain and showed the correlation between grain consumption and Alzheimer's. Gluten, I mean, it's everywhere. Not only celiacs, but you don't have to be a celiac to be affected by gluten. So all the gluten and grains, just terrible. It's something that didn't exist in the human species. I mean, there was no agriculture until 10,000 years ago. And there were also no heart attacks either until the 1900s, when we really started consuming massive amounts of grain. The only other time there were heart attacks was the Egyptians, who were known as the grain eaters. They ate a lot of grain. But things like grain, things like dairy, just terrible. I mean, other than certain areas like in Scandinavia where they have a certain genetic factor that actually helps them to digest dairy, a lot of people have issues. I know my family, a lot of issues with dairy. So you've got your dairy, you've got your gluten, you've got your grains, and then on top of that, all of the other factors that are coming from vegetables, all the poisons, the self-defense chemicals that plants use in order to keep us from eating them. So we're all hooked on them. We're all hooked in two ways. There's the metabolic addiction, which is related to mental, right? Because it's all one thing. The brain is part of the body. Mm-hmm. And when the body's calling for something, boy, your brain is screaming. And if you're hooked on carbs, hooked on sugar, a lot of people hooked on dairy because they're getting a buzz. You know, you eat dairy, a lot of times you're consuming casomorphins, which is a morphine-type substance, which is actually, a bowl of cereal in front of a child in the morning is the worst thing, because you've got all the grains, a ton of sugar, and then you've got the milk. Well, there's two things that happen. The milk is going to be affecting the child in all sorts of ways. It could be allergic to the casein, which is the protein. They could be allergic to the lactose in the dairy. They could be allergic to the whey. So they're going to be getting that effect. They're also getting a dose of sugar. If it's skim milk, it's even worse because the sugar percentage is higher. But then they're getting all the grain and all the gluten, which is affecting them. That's terrible. The bomb of sugar, which is a massive bolus of sugar. And then they're getting the casomorphins, which is kind of it's a morphine-like substance, like a runner's high. You get endorphins, which are from, running and endurance running, when you're damaging your body and your body releases these natural painkillers. It's the same type of thing, the casomorphins. So we're getting addicted to things like that. And so it's a physical addiction, but it's also a social addiction. I talk to a lot of people who are carnivores or aspiring carnivores, thinking about carnivore. And a lot of times what comes to mind is, well, what does that mean for me, like socially? Like, what about when I want to have friends over? And we like to put cheese and crackers on the table, or Dorito chips, or whatever, nuts, little, celery sticks with, cheese dip or whatever. And, we eat this stuff and we talk to each other, and it's kind of like part of our life. And what do I do when I'm not doing that? And what do I do with all my time? I like spending time, shopping and getting things and preparing all these fancy meals, and then serving people, and then cleaning up all the time cleanup. And then, so we're kind of socially addicted to it also.
Absolutely.
I mean, being on the other side of it is great, of that addiction, because I have so much free time. I mean, I got a couple freezers full of meat out there, and I've been doing my sous vide a lot lately. So I got the meats actually sous videing all day, and I just pick a steak out in 5 minutes in the air fryer, because it's all already fully cooked and sitting in the sous vide. It's fantastic. But my life is so simple. There's so much time that's freed up, and I feel amazing all the time, not just 5 minutes after I ate some particular meal. I spent a lot less time preparing food, eating food, everything else. But so I see a lot of people that have problems, and then I see my friends who have gone on carnivore, and I see the phenomenal results they have from carnivore. And some of them, I see Steve Toomey is on the
he's here
on the comments stream. There is one of them. Steve and his wife both had fantastic results, specifically around arthritic and pain issues. Of course, they lost some weight that they were looking to get rid of, and that's always the case with carnivores, that people will optimize their weight. If they're too skinny, they'll put muscle on. If they're too heavy, they'll lose that excess fat. They'll lose the visceral fat in particular. So I see these results. I see arthritis going away. Dramatic. Some of it's in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I see people who had full arthritis. A good friend of mine, in his hands, his knees, doctor said they couldn't do anything. It's gone away. I see acid reflux going away, where people have been on Prilosec and all of a sudden they don't have to take it anymore. I've seen depression, severe anxiety, severe explosive disorders completely disappear. No meds. I've seen people with injuries, ankle injuries that were horrific and that had lots of pain every day that go away. So I see these things. I see blood pressure that was 200 top number go down to 120 with no meds. Unbelievable.
Yeah, mine wasn't that high, but it's still normal after 3.5 years for the first time in probably 30 years, so I love it. Well,
wow.
25 years.
No meds, right, Dante?
No meds now, yeah.
Yeah. So I see all these things, and I see myself, my family, and all my friends, they go on carnivore, and all these things disappear. And then I see people that still have issues like that, and we talk. And this quote from Hippocrates really, really rang true, because I thought I really need to share this with my friends that are having these problems, because I see all these type of problems disappearing. Of course, it's no guarantee, like you said, that all their problems are going to go away. But I see so many dramatic problems that people went to doctors and the doctor said there was nothing they could do.
Yep.
Or the doctor gave them meds and the meds weren't working.
Yep.
And creating side effects. And then they went on a carnivore diet and everything cleared up. So it's kind of like I think it's a strong message to everyone out there that's considering carnivore, is that, okay, think about all the things in your life that are not something that you see in a 5-year-old child. Arthritis, depression, acid reflux, anxiety, pains, aches, bad sleep, all these type of things. IBS, Crohn's disease, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, if it's not in a 5-year-old, then it's developed over time as a chronic disease, and it's a good chance that it could be related to what you're eating. And so kind of brings me to my second point. Can I tell you the second point?
Yeah. Let me comment on your first point real quick, if you don't mind. Would that be okay?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Couple of things you pointed out. One of the things I always have a hard time with is remembering to get everything I wanted to say out to people when I'm talking. And sometimes this is why I love having you as to partner with when we do this, because you help me to spark the memory sometimes of what I was trying to cover. I got so many things I'm trying to do, trying to manage the stream at the same time. Is you mentioned about cheese and other things, and this is where a lot of people get very confused about why lion diet over carnivore diet. Isn't lion diet a type of carnivore diet? Why are you doing that as opposed to the other? And you talked about cheese and some other things that other carnivores do eat, like eggs. I don't know if you mentioned eggs when you were talking about those things. And then a lot of people still drink their coffee. And it kind of depends on the person, I think. But in my case, last year, especially all throughout 2023, because of the job I had and I was working a swing shift, I found myself getting back into coffee more. It's like I'm so easy to get back addicted to whatever it is. And once I just had one or two, before long, it was like espressos 4 or 5 times a day. And I don't need all of that stuff, and it wasn't really helping me like I thought it would, but it kind of pushed me into other things too. It made it easier for me to start adding cheese a lot more. And then I've experimented with some of these things on purpose because I wanted to see how they would do. Like I tried the pasture-raised eggs without the whites, and it seemed to be okay. Same thing with the cheese. It kind of seemed to be okay, except it would make it harder to go to the bathroom. But there was something under the surface that it was affecting me in a different way. And I think a lot of that led me to where I was adding more and more, what do you call those things? I hate when a word runs right out of your brain. What is coffee? Stimulants. You start adding stimulants. And for me, because I've been down a path where I've tried to stimulate myself a lot more than I should have in my life because I had a hedonistic pursuit lifestyle when I was younger and just very self-centered, I guess, is the best way to look at it. That's why I love being able to do this, is the more I focus on helping other people and less focusing on myself, the better I seem to get mentally altogether. But it was the physical side that helped me. But the fact that when I start doing cheese and eggs and some of those other things, even pork and chicken, because it's not as clean as what Lion Diet does, it tends to allow me to be easier to regress back and to struggle with weight and struggle with those brain fog issues again. But when I go back to a strict Lion Diet, and that's something I've noticed lately, is I start to feel a whole lot better. I have been very strict now for at least a couple of weeks where I am not doing anything but meat and water. And I have started to really break the clouds of 2024. And even I made a little video when I was in the hospital last night, and I don't know if I want to show it because it kind of shows the wound itself, and I don't know what YouTube's policy is on all that stuff because I don't take the time to keep up with what their policies are. I'm surprised I'm still here. But the one thing I noticed is as deep and wide this gash, I mean, it just would open up, but it wasn't pouring out blood. I kind of had to squeeze it, and I noticed that my body doesn't react like it used to. Like I would bleed real bad and it wouldn't stop. Now it stops very quickly. By the time the doctor was looking to put a stitch in, we have a guy there where I work, and I don't want to mention where I work because I try to keep my work separate from what I do here, but we have a guy there who's an EMT, and he was like, yeah, you may want to get a stitch or two in there. By the time I got there, it had already shut on its own. And I had only been less than 30 minutes, and I thought, wow, man, my healing ability is unbelievable. And I've noticed that for well over a year, and the fact that it's so hard for me to get sick. I used to get sick 3 or 4 times a year. Earlier this year, around December 31st, at the end of last year, was the only day I was sick in 2023. That was amazing to me because that was not my normal. My kids and my wife, who aren't strict carnivores and don't do the Lion Diet, but they have reduced some of the garbage in their life, they still get sick when everybody else gets sick. And most of the time, I can just keep going normal right through it. And it's been amazing at how it heals so many things. So those were a few of the things I wanted to add on to what you were saying, and also kind of clarify about what I was talking about before, because when you have addictions to things, when you are that type of person that's easily to get addicted, alcohol and marijuana were big for me earlier on, and they're still right around now. Everybody's talking about legalizing the stuff that I need to stay away from. I know some people seem to do very well with those things, but it's just not for me. It leads me down another path. And this way of eating is what has helped me to break free from so many of those negative addictions. Even when they come calling, I can still fight them back off now. And it's because of the health that I have physically and mentally have been able to gain from it, which has also allowed me to push forward spiritually. You know, when you're held back by all the problems that your body is giving you, and you're having psychological problems because of the things that are in your body, like you were talking about, it's hard to focus on spiritual things. You can have your faith and be there, but it's hard to make everything go into practice. And when I talk about my issues with ADHD, the only thing I can say for sure is a symptom that right off the bat is that I have a horrible time scheduling things. That's why I'm so happy we've been able to have these live streams regularly. Almost everything I've done on this channel has been spur of the moment, stream of thought, because that's the way I operate. But this way of eating is helping me to organize those thoughts a lot better and to be able to keep going and doing the things I'm doing. So I just wanted to tie that into what you were talking about, and now segue into your second thought.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that, Dante. That was perfect lead in, because you're right, the addictions are strong, and it's amazing that what I've found in that, how strong it is and how difficult it can be. But I think what people don't realize, and of course it's easy now being on the other side of those addictions, because of course I was a coffee addict, I was a carb addict, I had all of those things going on, right? Being on the other side of it, you know, when you're addicted and you consider, gee, if I can stop these carbs, what's it gonna take? I'm gonna have to, when I stop eating carbs, if I feel really bad. Well, that's because you're in the throes of the addiction. But I think when people weigh it, they think, well, okay, I'm gonna stop, and it's gonna always feel bad, not as bad as it does today if I don't eat carbs. If I don't eat carbs today when I'm an addict, I'm going to feel bad. But it's hard for them to be mindful because they haven't been on the other side of it. Is that when they finally do kick it, they won't have that craving. They won't feel bad. And they won't have all the problems that go along with their addiction. So anyway, I see we have some comments for Kerry coming in. That's awesome to see. I certainly want to get into that. But you want me to make my second point first, or do you want to?
Absolutely. No, I was just sharing. Okay. I wanted to be able to not miss any of these important chats before the stream was over.
Great. All right. So we'll get to that in a second. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is this. You know, everyone talks about, especially on Carnivore, what is your why? I see a lot of Carnivore luminaries saying you need to know what your why is. And I think that all started with, there was a really good luminary. His name is Simon Sinek, or if I'm pronouncing it right, but he was very big. He had a presentation he did on TED, and it was about your why, and why Apple, for example, is a successful company, because it's not what you build, it's why you build it, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And he started this whole process about your why. Well, I have another way of looking at that. I don't think that you can always know your why when it comes to Carnivore, and here's why I say that. As I was saying before, people go on Carnivore. Typically, a lot of times they go on Carnivore because they just want to lose weight. Mm-hmm. And then they lose the weight, and a million other great things happen. A million other things. All of a sudden, their arthritis goes away. All of a sudden, like as with Kerry, the depression goes away. His foot problem, he was going to get surgery. That disappears. That's not an issue. IBS, Crohn's disease, acid reflux, all of these things, they disappear. And usually, I think it's most common for people to go on the diet because they want to lose weight. But I think it's most common for people to stay on the diet because of all the other things that happen. And so what I would encourage people to do is, you know, we talk about going on a carnivore or a lion diet and saying, do it for 90 days and see how you do. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that when you do it for 90 days, you're going to know your why. Yeah. So you may not have a why, but you're going to get a lot of whys if you just try the diet and you see what happens. That will become your why. Or maybe you have a why like you want to lose weight. I guarantee there are going to be a lot of other whys that are going to come up that just naturally because the carnivore diet optimizes your body and you're going to solve a lot of problems. So I think it's an interesting thing to think about when people are looking at carnivore and saying, what am I going to get out of it? Well, I would say you'd be amazed. Do it for at least 30, hopefully 90 days and see where you're at. And you're going to have a lot of reasons to stay on it.
Yeah, well, because my initial goal was 6 weeks when I first started, I've always told people 6 weeks only because that was what worked for me. But I agree with you. It could be a couple weeks for some people because I knew within a couple of weeks. I was like, this is it. Not backing out. 6 weeks came and went, and I just kept on going. Never even thought about that being a goal anymore by then. So I always like to let people know that. There is something else to that, though, is if you are in pain, though, if you are having difficulty with what you're doing right now. I shared a quote the other day. I can't remember where I got the quote from, but it's basically when the pain of doing the same thing is greater than the pain of changing, then you'll change. Because it's so easy for us to, like water, take the path of least resistance to wherever we're trying to go. It's tough enough getting through life sometimes, just dealing with all the craziness that's going on in the world on top of the normal things that you have to deal with, like taxes and, paying your bills, keeping the electric on, inflation, all the problems that are going on. It can be real easy to get lost in those things. And then you have a hard time breaking free because you feel lost, and what it was for me back in 2020, that pain of not changing my diet or changing the way I think about things, that pain of not making the change was much harder than the idea of making the change, because I was at the point that I was so desperate that if I didn't do something, I shudder to say it, but I considered ending my life. And I probably wouldn't have survived much longer because it was bad. It was bad up here more than anything. Most of it was in here, I realize looking back now, but you can't see that when it's only in here. And it's coming from your body's pain. That brain and gut mixture together has a bigger effect on us than we think. And there's a YouTuber I was watching the other day that I follow, and she was talking about, and she's only in her 20s, late 20s, and she was talking about how she has IBS, but she also jokes about all the horrible food she eats all the time. And I think, I wish she watched my show as much as I watch hers, because she might be able to learn that there's a way out of this. And once you find out, once somebody gives you that answer, and I think that's the beautiful thing about what we've all been able to do as a carnivore community, is not only has my story inspired people like you and others, and of course, Carrie from Homestead How, who was in here earlier. Thank you again, Carrie. I really appreciate you. We're helping others to be able to see that there is an alternative to just rolling in the pain that you're in. It's going to take a little bit of work on your part, but it's not as much as you thought it was, I think, because we've been taught from when I grew up, it was always, you have got to muscle through everything. Well, eating meat isn't like other diets or something where you got to muscle through eating something you're miserable about eating. Not only is it delicious and something you go, man, this is great, I could eat this all the time, but it starts to change you physically too, so that you're able to say, you know what? I can keep going this way. This is a whole lot easier. But it's that spark sometimes that meets along with that why that's so important, that you can get started and move in the right direction. And, 3.5 years now almost. And I can't believe that I still get to wake up in the body that I grew up wishing I had.
Let me ask you a question, Dante. You mentioned that you don't change until the pain of change is
greater than the pain of staying the same.
Right.
Or, less than the same.
But, and of course, now that you have gone through the change over to carnivore, and you realize how great it is on the other side, and how temporary and transient that pain of change was, okay? If there was a way to go back in time to that pre-carnivore Dante and explain to that person and somehow express and have them understand how temporary that pain of change was and how amazing it would be on the other side, how much quicker would you have switched to carnivore? Probably a lot quicker. What do you say?
Well, I've mentioned this before in other videos where when I had just turned 17, it was the first time that I really started trying to get in shape. I joined the wrestling team and I started jumping rope like 30 minutes a day, which is a lot if you've ever jumped rope for 30 minutes at a time, like in one sitting. I would go until my calves just felt like they were going to explode. And I started losing weight. I got down from like 215 to 189 so that I could wrestle outside of the heavyweight class division of weights. And I wanted to get in shape, but I was taking advice from people who were recommending that I eat oranges and lots of fruit and salads. And I was trying to go down that route. And it was like one step forward, two steps back constantly. And you think to yourself, man, I'm working so hard at this and I'm not enjoying anything I'm eating. It's just miserable. And I'm still in the same position I was in. If I could have gone back and told 17-year-old Dante that all of the stuff that you're being told about nutrition is what's wrong, trust me, because I'm you, I think I would have listened. I would have definitely given it a try because by even at that age, I was like, why is it so hard? Why is it so difficult? So easy for so many other people. I would watch these young kids that I grew up with that, had the body that I would have killed for, and they didn't even do anything to work for it. And they were eating pizza and Cheetos and all the stuff that I wouldn't eat. I'm sitting over here eating a salad. So I think I would have listened. But I guess it depends on where you are, when somebody does give you that information.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question, you think?
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I saw you had a question come in from Kerry.
Huh? Oh, it wasn't a question so much as he was just here, contributing. It was a super chat, so thank you for that, Kerry. You're always so generous. Love what you're doing, Dante. Can't wait to meet you in Austin. Shake your hand and thank you and film you for the documentary. You're inspiring to so many. Well, that will be a good thing to point out. Next week is the Hack Your Health event in Austin. I can't believe it's here already. And Katie and I are going to be leaving Thursday to fly out there and go to that event. This will be the first time Carrie and I have had the chance to meet face to face, which will be exciting. And, he's been working on that Carnivore documentary now for I don't know, what has it been, a year or more? It's hard to believe it's been that we've known each other that long already, because it just goes so fast. But I'm glad to be able to see him, and I'm going to see a few of the other people that we all see on YouTube participating in one of the live streams there with a lot of the doctors. So I'm real excited about what we've got going on. And, I've mentioned the Hack Your Health event before. This is not something I'm doing for affiliation purposes. Is strictly because I think it's so important that we are able to get together face to face who are dealing with this new way of living, new way of eating, because a lot of people they don't have that thing that you have. You even have it better than I do, where in your personal life, it seems like everybody that you talk to about it is like a candle you just lit and then they go off and start doing it, which is awesome. In my life, it's like they're like, I don't know. You look like you got cancer or something. You look like you've you've lost too much weight. I hear that a lot, and I think, what are you talking about? How can I don't look like I'm in a concentration camp or anything, so I don't feel like that's the case at all. But most of the people in my life are still skeptical, even after 3.5 years. And then there's like the people in my immediate family here, they're not skeptical. They're just not willing to make that change as much as I have. They start to see like, yeah, I need to make that change. But even with me here encouraging and making the food, until they decide they're going to make that change, they're not going to make that change. And for those of us who have that situation where it's difficult like that, you need that face-to-face. But also, it's nice that we've got this right here on YouTube. But that face-to-face, you can't beat it. When you start to meet people, you hear their stories, you share stories, it's so much more real that it helps you to really press forward. And what we're doing isn't just about getting ourselves healthy. I mean, we all look around and we see what's going on in the world. Those of us who live in the United States, I know from my experience, because I am an American, a lot of us are looking around saying, what in the world is going on? and we would like to change things somehow. But I can't change what they're doing in Washington. You know, they say you can vote, and I'm all for your civic duty. Don't get me wrong. You can do your civic duty. But one of 350 million people isn't going to make a huge difference about somebody who's the president or in those positions where they have more authority or all the bureaucratic nonsense goes on. I've got to put a lot of that in the Lord's hands, because the only thing I can really change is making sure that I'm taking care of my family, taking care of my kids, taking care of myself first, so that I can do those things, because I've got to be mentally clear to do those things, to be a father and a husband. And then that extends out to where my wife benefits from it. I've talked about how she hasn't gone lion diet, but she quit a very strong drinking habit. And I don't want to go into too much detail on her issues because she's a very private person. But I have seen her go from being addicted to something to where now she's able to live life without it. And she's happier because of it. So that is extended to her, which is extending to the children, because now they look and they see, yeah, mom and my stepfather, which I raised 2 stepchildren, they used to do a lot of things that were unhealthy, and I saw how that affected their life. And then when they switched things, I saw how that affected their life. So now they've got that example to take on as they grow up and go to become husbands and fathers, that they can either follow what the path they saw at the beginning or the path they saw a switch to later on. And the big impetus for that was getting the poison out of my diet. I was already working on the spiritual. I was ignoring the mental health side because I was afraid to talk to my doctors about those things. And that's one of the reasons why I don't know what diagnosis I might have had. I wouldn't talk to my doctors about mental health stuff because I thought they would want to get too much in my business and maybe try to restrict my freedom because they were worried that I was, not mentally there or something like that. So there's a lot of people that are struggling with those things. But once they get that cleanliness in their body and it starts to translate into better family life, that translates into better community life. Because now, as your neighbors are doing it, and I'm sure there's more people, because I'm finding even in the little town I live in Florida, outside of Ocala, I'm meeting people when I'm out and about in town that tell me they watch my channel and how it's changed their life. I know that there's seeds being planted in my community and around communities around this country and even around the world that are moving us in a better direction. You want to have an effect on all the awfulness that's going on in the world? Make sure you're doing what you need to do first to make yourself be what you're supposed to be. And that's going to spread out from there, because it's real easy to just stay focused on what you want to make you feel good for a moment, to get you past the pain of the moment of now, that it just keeps you in that pain. Because every time, whatever you use to make you feel better, whatever you're addicted to make you feel better, as soon as it's gone, that pain is right back, and it's even stronger than it was before. So a lot of times you got to add to the addiction. And it just keeps you spiraling in the wrong direction. And then we look at our leaders and we say, why is everybody so corrupt? Because the corruption started here. It started at the bottom with the people who were doing the voting, the people who were ignoring the signs. Like, for instance, this teacher once told me she saw what was happening back in the 1970s and 80s, where they were changing the curriculum for the children, and they're getting away from teaching them basic principles and important things like shop and home ec, so that they could prepare for things other than maybe being a college university student. And she said what she needed to say, but she kind of got smacked down and then said, okay, I'm not going to rock the boat, And a lot of people are doing that because it's easy to do when you're in those situations like I'm talking about. And you don't even have to be somebody that has all these addictions. You can just be somebody that kind of takes a step back and says, okay, well, I can't make any change. But you can. And they realized that they should have said something then. They should have pushed a little harder then. And the more people who are doing these kind of things, that's how we get the change that we want to see in this country and in countries around the world, where we want to see our leaders making better decisions. It's got to start in the people who are at the bottom, who put these people into the positions of power that they're in. I mentioned it in the video that I released Thursday night, I believe it was, where one of the founding fathers I always like to think of, I can't think of his name right now. He wasn't somebody that you might recognize his name, but basically he said the written down laws that we've created for having a civilized society is not going to do anything if there's no virtue in the people, because we'll start to ignore those laws, just like we see what's going on a regular basis now. The Constitution constantly ignored by those who have taken an oath to defend it. Unless we have virtue in the people, we're not going to fix that. We're not going to fix those people at the top. They've just got to kind of go away eventually, but it's about fixing it at the bottom, and then it wells up to the top. That's what I believe about it anyway, and I think that's how we get ourselves out of a lot of these problems that we're dealing with. Sometimes when I get on these rants, I forget where we even started to talk, or how we got started talking about this.
I'll tell you what, Dante. I just wanted to add to that. People have probably heard of someone named Marcus Aurelius, and he once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Just be one." And I think that what you are is an example. And you've been an example to so many. I mean, Kerry has said that you got him fired up and started. And then look at how many people Kerry in turn has brought on board.
Yeah.
And
spreading like a fire.
So it is. I mean, even if the people in your local town, even on your street, on your block, your neighbors, may not even, have regard for all the amazing work you're doing. It's out there, and thankfully we have YouTube and we have this internet medium so that you're able to have the enormous impact that you're having. It's phenomenal. And also, remember, you're having that impact on your children, whether or not they say it or not, because they see you and they saw how you transformed your life as a carnivore. And that's kind of what got me started on healthy lifestyle and studying health and learning about health and wellness was my dad, who's 91 and doesn't take a single prescription medicine. So I think that you're a great example to them. You've been a great example to many.
Well, I'm honored to be in that position because, like I said, when I look back on a life of, and I might be overbearing on my own self because I typically am. I tend to beat myself up over things. But on a life of self-centered behavior, I am so much happier when I'm using my gifts to help other people than I am for helping myself. I used to have this desire to have fancy things. When I was a kid, I remember having a poster of the Ferrari that Magnum PI had, the 308 California Ferrari he had. That was my, I wanted the fancy cars. I wanted the big house. I remember when I was in 12th grade, they had us do this thing for the yearbook where it was like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I said, rich. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I said, richer. I was just focused on all of these things. And most of my life, I've kind of pursued them, even though I had good values. Like I was raised by Christian parents. I went to a good church. I heard all the right things, but I wasn't applying the right things. I was still following my plan. It was like, yeah, I believe that. I hear what you're saying. It sounds good. And I'd like to be able to do that. But at the same time, I'm young and I want to sow my oats and do all that stuff. And it would have been a lot easier if I'd have just maybe stood back and listened to some of the folks that were trying to give me a step up. Where did I leave off before I got on a rabbit trail again? Doggone it, I do this all the time.
Well, I'll just throw another quote in. Usually the hard is easy and the easy is hard.
Yeah. Well, I was very much about doing the hard things.
Turns out to be hard in the long run.
The easy thing turns out to be hard in the long run. That's right. One of the things that's interesting, you mentioned that, is my older stepson used to play video games, and when it was too hard, he would be here, can you beat it for me? And I would say, no, that's where the fun is. The fun is in beating it. You face the challenge and then you overcome it. So yeah, I agree. It's easy in normal life though, to want to be able to say, you know what? I don't want to beat it today. I don't want to step up to that challenge. I'll just have a drink or I'll take a hit and then I'll forget about it for a while. And I can understand the need and the desire for that, but it just keeps moving you a little bit further down the path, and it's hard to get out of that hole once you get there. So I'm glad to be able to have been an example for anybody, because there was a time in my life where I wasn't being the example that I even wanted to be for myself. So I'm thankful to be a part of this. I'm thankful to have this community and this opportunity.
Great example, Dante. And I thought you might want to talk about something that you mentioned earlier in the show, which is the difference between, carnivore and lion, and why people would want to be on lion versus carnivore, et cetera, et cetera. And, generally when people ask me about that, I'll suggest, well, there are different levels of carnivore, different versions of carnivore. Lion, of course, is the most extreme, if you want to call it, or exclusive, or
maybe raw carnivore is even more extreme.
Maybe, yeah. But the lion is very clean, because all you have is beef, salt, and water, and it's really awesome. And I know that it's difficult for people to sometimes it is to give up their carbs, depending upon the person. And so, also the almost social addiction to having a wide variety of foods and everything else. So, I'll suggest, look, if it's better to be on carnivore, even if it's not lion, than not be a carnivore. So go on carnivore and just have everything. Have all the meats. Have the beef, the chicken, the pork, the fish, and at least butter, eggs, and even if you have to have some cheese, but try to really not do the cheese. And just do all your meats and eggs and butter, and that's a pretty darn good diet. You've really got a lot in there, and you're going to see a huge benefit. You do that for 30 days, you're going to see a huge benefit. But don't sell yourself short before doing lion, because when you do lion, then you're going to see undoubtedly some additional benefits. So maybe do lion and say, I'm going to do lion, but I'm just going to do it for 30 days. So maybe do full carnivore for 30 days, and then do lion, and then see all the benefits that you get, and then do lion for 30 days. And if you don't get any new benefits, then maybe you want to stick with full carnivore that has all the different meats and eggs and everything else. But if you do, well, then you're just going to weigh it, right? It's get back to Hippocrates. And if you want to heal yourself, you got to be willing to get rid of the things that are making you sick. So I suggest that people at least, whatever it takes to get into carnivore, do it, but then at least try a time for at least 30 of it on lion to see, and just make the decision. Because again, you don't know your why until you actually find out your why, which is something that's only going to happen when you go through it, because it's individualized to every person.
And that's one of the reasons why I also started doing the carnivore coaching sessions that I have available through the website. And I didn't realize, one of the things that kept me from doing that for the longest time is I thought, well, they saw my videos, they know what I did, just do that and you'll be fine. And I'm learning that, I've learned now that there are people with very different goals, very different needs, very different previous eating lifestyles that might need to do a little bit of tinkering. And starting with regular carnivore and moving to lion might be better for some people. Starting with lion, like I did, worked out good because I had already sort of adopted a low carb lifestyle that I had just walked away from a good bit. So there's a lot of little ins and outs in there that sometimes it's helpful, but exactly, starting with cutting the junk out of your life, no matter what, I don't care what diet you came from, if you cut the processed foods out and you cut the seed oils out and you cut the sugar out, you're going to start to notice some differences right there. But then you got to get down to what kind of nutrients are you getting from your food. Like, for instance, with vegans go this route and they'll start to feel a lot of that change because they're getting that poison out of their system. A lot of vegetarians too. I know some vegans eat processed food, but the ones who are like really health conscious, not doing this for ideological reasons, the ones who are actually thinking about the health side, they do see the benefits, but then I think in the long term, they don't have the strength or the vitality that they would have had they got the nutrients that would be available in an all meat diet. And then there's some people that go on a carnivore way of eating that don't see the benefits that I've seen, but they're still eating cheese and they're eating eggs and they're eating some things that their bodies are having difficulties with. And that's where a lion diet can help. But that's one of the reasons why I finally pulled the trigger. That and the fact that thanks to you helping me get the website set up was a big part of it, and all the work you've done. So that's why I love having you here, man. Not only do you have a great amount of wisdom to offer the audience, and I think we have a great dynamic here that helps people to see the back and forth more than me just talking by myself. But hate that. Sometimes I get on my own rabbit trails and I forget what I was trying to say. And I've been doing that a lot this year. And like I said, it's been getting better. But you helped push me over the edge on that. And that's where I've been so thankful, because the folks that have called me to talk to me are that face-to-face that I was talking about that I'm sometimes missing. Even though it's on a computer, it's a lot different than reading words on the screen. For the first 3 years I was doing this, for the most part, the only time I got to interact with my audience was in typing and text. And it's not exactly the same. And that's why I like having as many regular folks on the show as I can. And I'd like to be able to remind people who have had success on Carnivore. I'd love to share your story. If you've got one that's worth sharing, I put the email address, dolphinsphan@hotmail.com. That's DOLFINSPHAN@hotmail.com in the description of every video. You can email me your story if you'd like, send pictures, anything that would help tell the story, and then we can try to maybe work it out where I can have you on the show and share what it has done for you. Because right now we still call it anecdotal, but I don't know that should be the fact. It shouldn't be anecdotal when you've got thousands and thousands of people changing their life this way. And the longer people are doing it, the more we can quell those arguments about, yeah, well, you're doing it for 6 months and you're doing great, but try it in a year, try it in 2 years, try it. It doesn't matter how many years I've been doing it. There's always somebody out there just going to say, well, we'll see where you are 20 years from now. And I say, man, 20 years from now, I'm going to be 70 something. I'd be surprised if I lived that long, a few years ago. So I'm just glad that it has changed so much for so many people.
Dante, I would just want to express to everyone out there that I think it would be fantastic for someone who is a new carnivore or has been doing carnivore and really wants to dial it up to connect with you and consult with you, because I think your consulting sessions are fantastic. You're a wealth of knowledge. You've helped so many people around the world already. And I could tell you from my own experience with my friends who have jumped on carnivore and who I've sort of helped, advised, it makes a tremendous difference. I know that it makes me feel very good that my friends who have gone on carnivore have been able to reach out to me and ask me questions, because as much as you look at videos online, it's hard to get it all to sink in. And I spent a lot of time getting my arms around it, my mind around it myself. I mean, I looked at the carnivore for 2 years before I actually jumped in and went ahead with it. And it was because I was facing a lot of physical challenges at the time I needed to solve, and it solved everything and more. And so it's been absolutely great. And I pushed my way through it, and it's been so gratifying to help my friends to do the same. And I would encourage everyone to reach out to Dante and become a client and consult with Dante, because it makes a tremendous difference being able to do that and just get answers to questions. It's huge, because it's hard to sometimes make sense of it when you're poking all around and trying to pick from here and there and everywhere.
Yeah, I never would have thought making more videos would actually convolute the problem, but I guess that's making more videos allows me to get more eyes on what's going on, to see this for the first time, and I'm thankful for that. But the only problem with having 500 plus videos on your YouTube channel is YouTube's organization isn't very good for the videos to be able to find. Like if I go to somebody's channel, it's hard for me to find exactly what I'm looking for. And if somebody's coming and hearing this story, like maybe they watched my 3 years carniversary video, which was the most popular video I've ever made, but they didn't see all the beginning parts, so they didn't see all the other struggles and things like that. So they got a lot of questions in their mind that long-term viewers might have already answered. And you can either spend hours and hours going through all of that, or you can set up an hour to sit and talk with me and ask the questions that you specifically have and give me a chance to find out what your goals are and do things like that. So that's been real nice. But I didn't want to make this all about, just trying to get people to know about what I'm doing here. It took me a long time to even get over the fact that who am I? Who am I to be counseling somebody? I don't have a nutrition like background other than being the administrator at a retirement home. And even then, the nutritional training was all wrong. I mean, they were telling us not to give salt to people, and then still say all the sugar they wanted was fine, those type of things. And I'm not a doctor, but at the same time, when I start to look and see all the experts are telling you the wrong thing, maybe you should turn to somebody who's not an expert. Maybe you should find somebody who's had some experience that has changed things when he's been following all that expert advice for all these years. So I'm glad to be able to offer it now, and I'm glad there's a few people who are doing it, because it's just it actually helps me communicating with people more to be able to be better about what I'm doing too. So I'm thankful for that. I'm really just thankful for this whole group that we have here. It has been amazing how changing my diet has affected so many other areas of my life, but just within this community is gangbusters. You can't get any better than what we've got here. And
yeah, well, you've affected so many other lives, Dante. Changing your diet affected so many other lives. So many. Look at Kerry, and then how many lives he's affected. Look at all of my friends. Steve Toomey, who's on the session with us here today. It just keeps rippling out. They say the butterfly effect. Butterfly flaps its wings, and one thing leads to another, and then the other side of the world, a month later, something happens. Well, you're not a butterfly. You're like an F-16, man. And you're just affecting so many people everywhere. It's amazing, and I'm really excited that you're going to the
Hack Your Health event
seminar. It used to be called KetoCon. What's it called now?
Hack Your Health. They changed the name because they felt like it excluded carnivores. As the keto and carnivore community have kind of grown together, they thought, what, we want to make sure to include everybody who is trying something different to get to the healthy lifestyle that they found. And I like the idea of what they've done. It does make it a little bit harder on the tongue. I mean, KetoCon's like instant. You know exactly what they're talking about. But a lot of carnivores were reluctant to participate because they're like, I'm not a keto dieter, even though it's similar concept of cutting out the garbage in your life. But we wanted to include them together because there's a lot of people that are getting a lot healthier starting a keto way of living. And then a lot of times they switch to carnivore and find that to be even better. I haven't had any stories where somebody went from keto to carnivore and back to keto, so I don't know. But maybe also they were realizing that keto was just the beginning and carnivore was the real answer. I don't know. But either way, it's good that they've included all the people who are working this direction and kind of going against the guidelines that we've always been told. Don't eat red meat, don't eat too much fat, cut out the salt, sugar is safe. All these things we've been told for over 50 years now, and they're all lies, and we're all on this path together. So I'm glad they're including us under one umbrella when they bring these groups together.
As far as keto versus carnivore, I think we've discussed before that it seems when people go keto and then ultimately go carnivore, and this was the case with you, is the case with Kerry and so many carnivores, is that when they're on keto, they're doing 80% of the work of a carnivore and getting 20% of the results. And when they just finish it out and go full carnivore, they get 100% of the results. And then they realize what a difference it is. I mean, it's a dramatic difference when people are keto and then they just do that last little bit and go carnivore and eliminate the plants, and everything just really changes dramatically. So I'm excited for you. You're going to see luminaries like Dr. Chafee. Thank him.
I haven't met Dr. Chafee before, but I'll be with them on that live stream, so I'm going to get to meet him as well. I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. Yeah, it's going to be great. Now, when are you headed to Hack Your Health?
Thursday.
Okay, Thursday. Okay, and then how many days long is that?
It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll be at the event all day Friday and Saturday, except for when I've got to step out with Carrie to record for the interview, which is going to be, I think, Friday morning. I'm going in early Friday to get a DEXA scan to see how I've changed over a year's time. And then I'm heading right out with Carrie to go get that done. And then I'll be back the rest of the day Friday to participate in all the events. And I'm going to listen to the speakers a lot more this time. Last year, I tried to just be walking around a lot so I could meet people. But I found that I still missed a lot of people. And then I also missed a lot of the discussion that I wanted to take part in. There's so many events that you can go and listen to these doctors we've talked about, and you get a chance for some of that FaceTime and maybe even get to ask some of the questions as you've been wanting to ask them face to face. So I will be there. And then Saturday, this is again where I have such difficulty planning. I'm thankful Carrie kind of has most of it already planned. All I got to do is ask him, hey, when am I going somewhere? And then I'll be there. And then Sunday, I'd probably be there for a little bit in the morning, but we fly out that afternoon. So anybody who's going to the event, I wanted them to know, that I'm not going to be there 100% of the time, but I'm going to try to be available for anybody who wants to come by and say hi. I know we've had quite a few people buy tickets because of the code that, what is her name? Gee whiz. The lady who does the Hack Your Health event. Oh, doggone it. Let me look it up because I'm getting old. Robin Switzer. So bad about this. She gave me a discount code for people to be able to use to be able to get their tickets. And I know we've had quite a few people this year that signed up. I don't remember the exact number, but it's just exciting to know that I'm going to see you there. And I hope that I don't miss anybody who signed up because they knew I was going to be there. I wish I had an event that I was going to be a part of that I knew for sure, so I could say I would see you there. But keep your eyes open. You'll see me walking around. Katie will probably be right next to me, so just look for the bald guy with the blonde-haired woman, and maybe it'll be us.
Well, I wish I could be there with you, Dante. As you know, I'm headed off to Sweden on Saturday, so it'll be the middle of Hack Your Health. I'm heading out of town. Who knows, maybe the Dutch Carnivore will take a ride up on his bicycle from Holland to Sweden and join me for a little cycling. We'll see.
That's a long ride. You got to go around through Finland to get there on bike.
It is a bit of a ride, yeah. Probably better take a train up and then hop off the train. But I'll maybe when I'm over in Sweden there, after you're back from the Hack Your Health, we could do another call like this, but spanning the globe.
So, is there anything about your trip to Sweden that involves this? I don't want to dig in. I only found out when you texted me earlier today and told me about the Sweden thing that's where you were going.
Yeah, so I go there every summer for cycling. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it. I love the people. I love the country, and the countryside is beautiful. And the difference this year is that because I'm a carnivore now, I'm going to be bringing my own pemmican with me. So I've been really amped up my whole pemmican production process here because even though there's a lot of good food there to eat. For example, where I'm going to be is going to be near the coastline. There's a lot of these fish smoking houses. They call them fiskrekeri, which is they smoke the fish right there. You can get this nice smoked fish. They have oily fish like mackerel and things like that. I think that'll be really, really nice. But I also want to make sure that when I'm out and about, that I always have my carnivore food with me. So I'm really amping up my production of pemmican, and I'm going to bring it all shrink wrapped, and so I'll always be good to go with carnivore vittles.
Yeah, I wish I could go with you. That sounds exciting. I used to follow a YouTuber who lives in Sweden, Golf Clash Tommy. He was the guy who was kind of the star in the community back when I started doing YouTube 4.5 years ago, where I was working with my son. My son was 13 then, or he was not quite 13 yet, and he had already posted a couple of videos on YouTube, and I thought, well, first of all, you're not old enough to be posting on YouTube, and second of all, you need to be careful what you're putting out there. So I decided to work with him on his gaming thing that he wanted to do on YouTube, and he saw how much work it was. He kind of said, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore, and I wound up sticking with it for over a year that way. But Tommy Lofberg is a YouTuber that I followed back then, and it would be cool to be able to maybe meet him, because what he did for the Golf Clash community is one of the leader things that got me to be prepared to do what I'm doing here. And then I actually have an old friend that lives in Finland that I knew when I was in high school. He was an exchange student. And I have another friend in Sweden that I used to play video games with years ago. When I went to Italy back in 2006, he came down from Norway with his wife, and I got to meet him down in Rome. So it's always cool when if you're like me and I'm not used to getting to travel that often, when you go there and you got somebody to meet or see that you haven't met personally, that's really cool. But that sounds awesome, man. Let's see. Steven had a question for you. Will you be pedaling your pemmican along your bike trip? What does that mean? Is he asking if you're selling it?
Well, I will be pedaling with my pemmican. I will not be pedaling the pemmican though, because it's gonna be all I could do to have my own supply over there. I'm actually, the batch that I had today is I got a new cow in, and the farmer, really a great guy, he gave me a lot of extra hearts, and so I did a bunch of heart yesterday, and I put it on the dehydrator, and I'm going to make a heart pemmican. And so that's one of the specialized pemmicans I'm going to have. I've been doing a lot with smoking the pemmican. What I've been doing is I take the meat, I slice it, I put it in my Kasori dehydrator. I'm doing it at a low temp, like 115, because I want it to be more dried than it is cooked. Really dry it out good for 24 hours. And then after that, I chop it up in the food processor or the Vitamix, depending. But I'm sorry, before I chop it up, I take it out of the Kasori and I put it in my big green egg with a cold smoker. And I got smoking tubes, and I put smoking pellets in there. So I'm not actually using heat in the big green egg. I'm using the green egg as an enclosure, and I put these racks that I got from a company called LEM, L-E-M. And I stack that up, and I smoke it for about 2-3 hours. It gets a great smoky flavor. Then I grind it up. I add the tallow, and simple. It's good to go. So I'm producing as much as I can because I want to have a lot of it on hand. So when I'm out there cycling, I've got the pemmican.
Somebody asked if you can take that meat on the plane, and I will say that last year when I went to KetoCon, I brought pemmican with me for that trip, and I had it wrapped. I took like parchment paper and tied it so that it looked like candy or something like that, and I had a little ribbon around it so that I had a bunch of wrapped pieces of food. And nobody asked, but I'm assuming this is what would have happened if they had asked. They were like, "What is this?" I say, "Well, it's food." "Are you sure?" "Yeah, watch, I'll eat it." You can see that it's not going to blow the plane up or whatever they're going to be afraid of. So, but I didn't get to bring back my magnesium when I went to the Keto Chow and met them, and they wanted me to try some of their magnesium supplement. It was in a bottle that was like, I don't know, 6 ounces, 4 ounces, something like that. But it was larger than the amount of ounces of liquid you could carry, and they kept that. But they didn't take my pemmican away, so shouldn't be a problem getting on a plane with pemmican.
Well, I would say that, as a matter of fact, I see a question here from Dutch Carnivore about, do you have to keep the pemmican cool? Well, that's a good point. I would say if I'm out in the hot sun,
maybe
it might loosen up a little bit. The tallow is definitely firm at room temperature, and it depends on the percentage of tallow to meat as far as the ratio. I find that I like about 2/3 of the weight of the meat in tallow. Gives me a pemmican it's good and fatty, but it's almost a little crunchy when I bite into it. So it's not gooey and soft and squishy. But I'll be able to tell you, Peter, after this trip, how it works out in the sun. I might bring a little cooler thing with me or something to have on the bike, but we'll see. What do you got there, Dante?
This is a carnivore bar, which is basically pemmican that doesn't have any berries or honey and anything like that in it. I get the salted carnivore bar, and I wanted people to see this because this is kind of how it looks. If this is a heavy fat ratio content, and mine come out a little bit darker than this, but this was in my truck all day in Florida on a 90-plus degree day because I picked up the mail before I went to work. When I'll say it was in the mailbox for at least an hour, and then it was in my truck while the sun went down at least another, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's about when we start, at least another 5 hours that it sat there, and it didn't affect the shape of this at all. I thought it might look melted or something like that when I went to open it, So I thought that we might be able to answer that question real quick. And I do have, Carnivore Bar is one of our affiliates, so there's links in the description if you're interested in getting the Carnivore Bar. I still love Carnivore Crisps. I just don't have any available right now. I got to order some more. Those have been invaluable to me, but for people that had questions about the pemmican melting, I just wanted to say, this is how they normally look, whether I get them in the truck all day in the heat like that or not. So I don't think you're going to have a problem.
That's fantastic.
And I know I ate one on the plane.
I'm going to get something. I'm just going to step away for a second. I'm going to show you what I am going to bring on the plane. Okay, so I'm running over to my freezer. I'm grabbing some pemmican here. And grabbing a few different versions of it. And I'm also going to show you some beef jerky that I'm going to be taking on the plane, because this is my favorite beef jerky. Oh, this is fantastic. I'm going to tell you how I made it, and you're going to want to do this. Okay. Here I am. All right, so here's a pemmican I really like. It's frozen, so I want to make sure you can kind of see just look at that. It looks like carnivore brownie. It's beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I froze it. You don't need to freeze it.
Yeah.
It's shelf stable. I mean, they've been doing this for...
I kept those ones I took to KetoCon out for several months because I didn't want to eat them all. I was saving them after I made them.
Now here's a pemmican that if you put a lot of fat in it, you end up
gets
with,
whiter.
It looks like icing on the top. See that? It's like a layer of icing.
It depends on how it sits. That's what I had too. When I did mine, I did little cups. They were rounded on one side, so it looked like a tiny little cup of pemmican, and all the meat was at either the top or the bottom, and not all of it, but a good bit of it to where it didn't look as dark as that. And then there was like this layer of fat. I thought it was wonderful. I loved it.
Oh, it's awesome. Here's another one. This is a flat piece that I did, and it just depends what kind of pan you put it in. I tend to put it in those glass trays, and then I just let it harden up. You could put it in the fridge or on the counter, and then I kind of work a knife around the edge, and the whole thing pops out.
Yeah.
But now I want to show you my jerky that I made from a brisket. This is a grass-fed brisket that I got from a local farm here. Nice and fatty. And as you know, the grass-fed meats can have this beautiful yellow fat.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
This is what I'm going to have on the plane.
Is that pieces like bacon? Is it cut like bacon?
Yeah, it's like bacon, yeah. Let me peel one off here so you can see. When you're going through TSA, you never know who you're going to get. And how up they're going to be on everything. And I don't want to get my pemmican. I don't want to risk the pemmican getting taken away. So I'm going to pack that in the bags. I'm going to check it. And we'll see what happens on the other side with that. But getting on the plane, I'm just going to have this. See, it comes just like a piece of bacon. Look at the fat on that. It's beautiful. I mean, I think the fat to protein ratio on this is absolutely perfect. Oh.
I don't think they'll have any problem with you on the plane. I didn't check any bags when I went to Austin.
Yeah, because it's so obvious a piece of meat. And if they have a problem with it, I could just eat it in front of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. That fat, that yellow fat. Huh. Amazing.
I hate to even think about the fact that I could have my food taken away because of some nonsense that these agencies do. They're not offering us any extra safety, in my opinion, with all the things they do. But definitely take away our freedoms to be able to think about whether or not we can eat when we get where we're going. Anyway, didn't mean to get off on that sidetrack there. I'm just thinking about bringing my pemmican and how upset I would be if they took it away. I would say, you better take that home and eat it. And I want you to email me and tell me how much you liked it.
Yeah, right. But no, I'll be having this. I'm gonna take a bunch of jerky too. I'm gonna shrink wrap the jerky, and a bunch of shrink wrap pemmican, and then I'm gonna have the jerky on the airplane, and it'll help me to avoid all of the Swedish temptations that they have over there. They have things like kanelbullar and kardemummbullar, these buns and things that you get in these bakeries. I'm not going to have any of that stuff. So I'll be able to certainly avoid it having this kind of stuff around. But they also have a lot of great things over there. They have sill, which is a herring. They have all kinds of herring. They have all these smoked fish places. And, I mean, smoked fish is fantastic, especially a good oily fish. I tend to find when I eat fish over here in the States that it doesn't really stick to my ribs enough because it doesn't have enough oil. I really like the beef as far as sticking to my ribs. But over in Sweden, get the oily fish, I think it's much better.
Yeah, well, they get that, what do you say, polar cold ice water wild caught fish. It's like some of the best in the world up there. The omega-3 6 ratios are like 1-to-1 or something like that. Like the best you can get. You know, I wish I could have them, but I'm allergic to fish, so I haven't. Not only am I allergic to fish, but I also like that I have an excuse. I never really liked fish, but I would like to try some of that better fish and see if it didn't cause any histamine issues. Then I'd be fine with it. But usually when I eat fish, my lips start to blow up, and I get a runny nose, and my eyes start watering, and all kind of stuff. Well, you know what? We're already an hour and 20 minutes in. I've been trying to keep these to an hour each week because sometimes I make plans afterward, and I do have some. I have a matter of fact, I have a call coming up this afternoon with one of my consultation folks that I have to talk to. So I'm looking forward to talking to them. But I'm just glad we got to be able to get together again today because you know what? Yesterday, after all that was going on, I thought, you know what? We're probably not going to do the live stream tomorrow. But I woke up after all I went through yesterday with that, and I just had this confidence back that I haven't had for a little while because of the issues where I let things back into my diet that caused me issues, and I've gotten them back out, and I think that's what's making the biggest difference right now more than anything. I've been talking to my doctor about a number of things. We looked at my thyroid very closely, did the full panel. He even had me on levothyroxine for a couple of months, and that didn't help because he said this wasn't a side effect, but from what I looked up online, it is. I was so lethargic. It was hard for me to get up and do anything, but just getting back into the pure diet, and I've been able to get back off of the levothyroxine, so now I'm back off of any meds like that. And I'm hoping that it's going to continue that way. We are still talking about hormone concerns because he still thinks that might be with the area where it is. But, my hormones have improved so much since I've been on this way of eating. It's definitely a step in the right direction. And I hope it continues to go that way. But, you never know when it comes to hormones. Those are a difficult thing to get a full grasp on. But we're going to keep plugging away and keep trying to, not only share my story so that it continues to show that you can live and thrive this way. It also continues to show that it's not, it's not all rosy picture all the time. You still live life. You're still a human in the world, and you're going to have to face challenges. My pastor always has this thing he used to say, or it's like a bumper sticker even. He would say, adversity is inevitable, stress is optional. And I've mentioned it on my show a lot of times. And that's because I truly believe that we're all going to face adversity. But how we let it affect us is optional when it comes to your spiritual life, but also when it comes to what you're putting in your brain and in your body to be able to function. You don't have to have stress along with the adversity if you're treating your body the right way. If you're giving your brain what it needs to function properly, it helps you to be able to focus on the things that you need to focus on so that you can have that life that you want to have and be relaxed, even when the storms come. To be able to be like the story I remember hearing about George Washington when he was standing up on the front line and cannonballs were blowing by, and one of his sergeants asked him something about why are you standing right there in front of everything? And it was like, there's a plan for my life. I already know that. And if this is it, then this is it. But I've got to be where I am now to be the leader I've got to be. And that's the same thing that I approach this diet with, is that it gives me the boldness to say the adversity's there, but I can stand up and do what I've got to do.
So Dante, can you tell everybody your website so that they can get on board and find you to to sign up for some consulting.
I will. Thank you. I'm the world's worst marketer, John. I always, it's a lot of times I forget to tell these things. It's ferignofreedom.com. So you can see the spelling in the bottom right corner of the screen there for the Ferrigno Freedom. And then also we have your website that you built right alongside with it, Carnivore Knowledge. And there's a link on my site to the Carnivore Knowledge site. I assume there's a link back. I don't know. So whichever one you go to, you can find us. And that Carnivore Knowledge site, guys, if you are, remember I was talking about how my videos, there's tons of them and it's hard to navigate on YouTube. John's got them all in order on my site from when they came out so that you can see them in the order that they came out in, and then kind of find what you're looking for a whole lot easier there than you can on YouTube. And it takes you directly to YouTube, so when you watch it, it helps the channel because we're continuing to get, views and things like that, but it'll make it easier for you to find it. And then the Carnivore Knowledge site, John has put together all these, what he, I like the word he uses, luminaries. That's, I guess, basically what people like Dr. Baker and Dr. Barry and Dr. Chafee are, because they've been the authority figures in the health area that we've been able to turn to, because if it was just a bunch of people like me, it might be hard to accept this. So many people that are, especially older people, the older they get, the more, or the I don't know how to put this. When I worked in a retirement home, the people who lived there, what their doctor said was gospel. So that there's an authority there, there's a trust there that those people give us. And all of the videos that they've put together on certain topics, John has organized them so that you can find them as it relates to issues that you're dealing with or concerns that you may have. And that's awesome. And I'm glad we got to be able to share that, because there's going to be a whole lot of information out there for you on these two websites that we just talked about. And with that, if you don't have anything else to add, John, I'll give you the last word, and we'll end this live stream unless there's any last minute questions anybody wanted to ask while we're here. I don't know that I'll be doing any type of live stream like this week coming up, because I won't be, because I'll be heading to the airport right about the time that I would be doing this. So, and I don't know if John's going to be back for while he's in Sweden, although you are invited. If that's something you'd like to do, we can still do this. It doesn't matter where you are, man. The internet goes around the world somehow.
We'll work out the timing, and depending upon where I am and how my cycling is going. And let's see if we can get, I think it would be fun to have a live cast that was half Florida, half Sweden. And a lot of fun. And a shout out to Peter, Dutch Carnivore, if you want to come up to Sweden, do some cycling, come on up. And I'm really excited about your trip to Hack Your Health, Dante, and I wish you all the best at that Hack Your Health. I think it's going to be amazing, talking to people like Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker, Barry. I mean, it's crazy. It's going to be amazing time. I would be there myself if I wasn't doing this Sweden trip, which I love. I go every year, and I look forward to doing some live casts from Sweden with you, and to continuing your mission together.
Ditto, man. All right. Well, guys, thanks for joining us today. We'll be back. I will be back at least in a couple of weeks, but I will be talking to you from the Hack Your Health event. I can guarantee you that. It just may not be in this same long format like this. I'll probably be using my phone, walk around, do a few live talks. Maybe if I get the chance to meet some of our favorite people, I'll jump in live if they don't have a problem with that. But whatever it is, we'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?